Hello, everybody, and welcome to this Creative Careers webinar. I hope you can see us and hear us. We're hoping that the technology is being kind to us and isn't going to let us down. My name is Simon, and I am going to be your host for this particular session on the Creative Careers Day. Firstly, just to say that this Creative Careers event has been a collaboration between Lichfield Arts and Lichfield Festival, and it has been funded by the Arts Council of England as part of Lichfield Arts Future Leaders in Outdoor Arts programme. And the event is all about exploring pathways into creative industries, and we're going to be hearing directly from the people who've been possibly right at the exact same place that you are at this moment in time, and they've gone on to build inspiring careers from the ground up within their chosen creative sector. And as I say, that could well be the position you're in at the moment. You're looking for the next logical step on your career path, or even you're looking to enter the creative sector for the first time. So we're very proud on this session to be bringing some local voices onto the panel who are also creative talents in one form or another. We have some very, very local voices from Lichfield itself, but we're also going to be dipping our toe into the pool of Staffordshire and Birmingham talent as well. So we've got a real melting pot of talent for you on this particular session. Okay, I think that's it. We are ready to go. So let's dive in and get started by introducing you to the panel. So what I'm going to ask each person to do is, if you'd like to give us your name, and if you have preferred pronouns, please share those with us as well. And tell us just a little bit about yourself and your creative speciality. So I'll start, if I may, with Claire, seeing as you're sitting there on my left-hand side.
Brilliant. Thank you, Simon. Hi, everyone. My name is Claire Pinder-Smith, and as you can probably tell from my background, I work at South Staffordshire College. There I am the curriculum manager for creative arts. So I oversee everything creative at Lichfield College. And I'm also a musician in my background and saxophonist.
Thank you very much, Claire. Okay, moving on to you, Matt.
Hi, thanks, Simon, and hi, everyone. So my name is Matt Buckingham. I work as an author and illustrator, predominantly in children's publishing, and I also teach at the University of Staffordshire on the illustration degree award there too.
Thank you, Matt. Okay, second row down, Mia, please.
Hi, everyone. I'm Mia. My pronouns are they, them. I mainly work as a stage manager and events manager in regional theatre.
Thank you, Mia. Jessi.
Hi, I'm Jessi. Oh, I think I've frozen. There we are. My name's Jessi, and I am an actress and comedian based in the Midlands, and I do everything theatre-y, filmy based that I can do.
Thank you, Jessi. On to Rumby.
Hi, I'm Rumbi. I work as an artist, illustrator, and facilitator, working with like comics, textiles, as well as a little bit of writing my own work as well. So, yeah.
Brilliant. And finally, Nikki.
Hello. So my name's Nikki. I am a creative producer based in the Midlands and also head of programme for a company called Punch Records, which is based in Birmingham. And we are a music and arts agency which focuses on diversity and inclusion in the creative industry.
Thank you. So as you can see, we've got quite an array here. I'll just introduce myself quickly and why I'm here. As I say, my name is Simon. I've worked in a number of creative areas, from graphic design to music production and live performance, as well as acting and presenting on television. My main creative career path has been within the television and film industry, working as a director and producer. So as I say, I think we've got most bases covered, in all honesty, on this session. So seriously, I'm optimistic we can answer any question that anybody cares to throw at us. So I'm going to throw the challenge out to you now, see if you can catch us out on something that we can't answer for you within the creative careers industry. To begin with, it might be interesting for us to share a little bit about how we got into our current roles. My specific role began when I went to university as a mature student when I was 22 22 because I decided quite late in life that I wanted to work in television, and so I started very late, and as a result of that, that's what brought me into the sector. What about anybody else? Has anybody else that like to just contribute how they maybe broke into the industry, as it were? Anybody like to pick up that one?
Happy to.
Oh. Yeah, let's go with Jessi first. Go for it, Jessi.
Yeah, so professionally, I started my career when I went to study acting at university. So I did a BA in acting, slightly different to a drama degree, more like a drama school course, but at a university. So I got the university kind of feel as well. And I unfortunately graduated during 2020, which is an awful time to graduate anything creative, but have been able to work professionally since 2021. So was quite lucky in that respect. But that's kind of how I became professionally into my career.
Okay, well, I'm going to jump straight, if you don't mind, Matt, I'm going to jump straight into questions because we are starting to get some questions come in. Before we do that, I would actually just like a show of hands because Jessi's raised an interesting point. It would be interesting out of all of us, can we just raise our hands? If we went to university to sort of train in our chosen career, how many of us went to university to, okay, that's really interesting. Okay, well, I'm not sure whether that means anything. We'll maybe unpack that a little bit as the session goes on. But I'm going to jump in with the first question that's coming from Ellie. Ellie asks, where is the best place you recommend to find creative jobs? I'm transitioning from film to events and I'm struggling to find opportunities to apply for. Any thoughts on that? Claire, I might come to you on that one, perhaps. Would you have any thoughts on that to begin with?
In terms of obviously finding creative jobs, we encourage a lot of our students to partake in work experience. So obviously they're not working for money, but obviously they're working to gain experience with a certain industry professional. And then through that, they're making links. So we have learners who have gone on to get paid work straight away as a knock-on effect from the work experience that they've undertaken. So it's all about maybe volunteering to get experience within a certain industry, especially if you're trying to transition from one specialism to another. Sometimes it can be really hard to get onto that first step of employment if you don't have that experience backing you up. So it's all about sort of networking, attending networking events or creative networking events, and we host some at the college as well to get a pool of creative people around a table, and that's always really useful to get your name out there and just to network. But I would also say liaising with as many creative people and industries as you can to gain experience and insights from people who are more experienced and have spent many more years in the industry.
Thank you, Claire. I mean, it's true that it is a cliche that within the creative industry, more than in any other industry, I think it is who you know, not what you know. That's not to downplay what you know. You've, of course, got to have some sort of ability behind you. But it is, Claire's quite right. The more people you can interact with and network with, the better you will get on. This is an important question, I feel. How do you go about finding creative jobs? In many ways, this could be the most important question we get tonight. Would anybody else like to chip in with their thoughts on how they go about what would the best option to go about looking for creative jobs? Anybody? Yeah, Mia.
I'd say for events specifically, arts jobs is always really useful for kind of any creative jobs. In terms of events, there's lots of like events assistant jobs that go on there for festivals, but also Facebook groups are your best friend. So there's hundreds of them out there with very specific kind of sectors of the arts sector. And lots of the time people will say things like, I need someone for 2 hours tomorrow to unload a van in the middle of Birmingham or something like that. And if you can just meet people that way, then you might, if you can kind of show that you want to work for them and work really hard, then they will remember you and kind of might ask you to do something a little bit more next time, or might say if you've got availability next month for this job.
Okay, Rumbi, I think you've got something to say on this as well.
I would say there are a lot of programs and traineeships that are going around. So if you literally type in insert industry here, traineeship, then it means you end up learning alongside other people that are already industry professionals. And a lot of the times you end up doing a placement. So you're doing actual work and you're paid alongside it because it's a traineeship or an internship. So you get your first role on your CV, and you're paid in your first role on your CV, and you're learning near people that are also doing it for the first time, it's a really easy way of transitioning from one way to another. And I would agree in terms of arts jobs as well, there's a lot of things there, but also not necessarily thinking about specifically events, but seeing if there are any traineeships that are adjacent to events to get some like other transferable skills. So you might do a traineeship in curating, that's good for events. You might be doing a traineeship in producing, that's good for events. Like finding a really creative way to get in is also a really good idea.
Thank you both, Rumbi and Mia. I think that's a really important point that you've made. Within the creative industry, it's almost a case of, as long as you're doing something creatively, it will feed into your career in some way, shape or form. So one thing I would add to this is very much whatever you do within the creative industry, it's going to be valuable experience, and it will feed in almost certainly in some way, shape or other. So even if at this point in time you feel you're not quite into the correct arena or the specific area that you want to be, as I say, I think you'll find that it's all going to be very valuable experience anyway. Matt, yeah, I was going to come to you next. You've got a point as well to make.
Yeah, I just think it's really important for any creative to have that kind of like agile and adaptable approach. And I think, in many cases, creatives, when you're in a community of creatives, they talk to each other and word of mouth, but getting involved in groups, in creative groups, creative organizations, and really putting yourself out into lots of different creative environments opens all sorts of doors. And also, I always say, don't be precious and be fixed on this is the only thing I want to do and I'm not going to deviate from that, because like you've already said, different creative opportunities open other doors further down the line. And I think it's that adaptable agile kind of approach is really important as a creative to sustain a career as well.
Perfect, thank you, Matt. I'm going to stay with you a sec, Matt. Nikki, I will come to you in a moment with your question, your comments as well. But I want to just back this one straight at you, Matt, because we've had a question come in. Could you suggest where someone could try to find to find work experience and volunteering in the Lichfield area for illustration and character design? Any specific advice on that one, Matt?
Well, I'm not familiar with the Lichfield area per se, but I mean, I suppose for character design and illustration, really being an illustrator with, modern technology, I think, there's so much more opportunities than just in your sort of local physical environment. So I mean, one of the things I always think and say to students, it's about raising your profile and people's awareness. So I always think that competitions are a really good way to get your work noticed by a broad range of people. So realistically, building the confidence and building the resilience to put your work out there and, showcase your work and the skills, I think is probably one of my main sort of thing. But competitions, look at national, there's lots and lots of student competitions, illustration-based competitions out there. There are lots of, from things like Creative Conscience Awards, the Roses competition, the Penguin book cover competition. There are lots and lots of student-based competitions, which again, even if you don't win, it's getting your work in front of commissioning editors, which is very difficult to do outside of competitions. So those things can be really beneficial and also help you build your confidence in showcasing your work, which I know is quite a difficult thing when you're starting out.
Okay, lovely. Thank you, Matt. Okay, Nikki, yeah, just coming back to you on the previous question about finding creative jobs. Any thoughts on that?
Yes, I was just going to say, utilize social media, like really juice it, because a lot of the time, organizations won't go to like a central platform to post a job. They'll just do it on their own social media platforms. So if you're engaging with those organizations and just like watching their Instagrams or Facebook or whatever they've got, then you might see something there that suits you.
Thank you very much, Nikki. Okay, a couple of quick final points from Claire and Rumbi. Coming to you first, Claire, and then we will move on to the next question.
Thank you, Simon. This was just in reference to the question with regards to how someone can find work experience in Lichfield. And it was just on the back of what Matt was saying about competitions, and I completely agree that competitions are a really great way for creative people to get their work out there. And I know at college, I don't know who's asked this question and where they are at in their educational career, but if they are at a college, it may be worth exploring with that college if they take part in something called World Skills Competition. And I think for graphic design and illustration, there's a big link there with Adobe, which is obviously an industry standard platform, editing platform. It's a really great competition that I can strongly advise people engage with if they have the opportunity. Because as Matt said, it gets the work on a national platform as well, and in front of industry standard editors and people that are working in the industry. More practically based in Lichfield, it may be worth reaching out to a charitable organisation called Support Staffordshire, who works solely to match volunteers with someone who has a volunteering need. So it may be worth reaching out with Support Staffordshire. They'll have a profile online to Google and saying that you have this that you want to offer, and then they may be able to pair you up with a local business or charity that is needing some sort of graphic design or illustration support.
Thank you very much, Claire. And so the final word on this to you, Rumby.
I'd say if you're not in college or uni, one really easy way to get some experience is literally set yourself some briefs of your own. So there are a lot, especially in October, there's a drawing prompt list that goes out called Inktober, where people post their work online and people are following all of those prompts. And that's how a lot of people find you if you're uploading what you're drawing every single day, as well as if you are drawing the things that you want to be drawing and getting commissioned for. I would always prioritize drawing that instead of what you think a commissioner might be looking for. Because if you draw what you think a commissioner might be looking for, that's the work that you'll be getting. So building your portfolio by yourself if you're not in a school environment. And I wouldn't take for granted how kind people can be. So even if you can email a favorite artist, ask for advice for how did you get into this magazine, or emailing a magazine, or emailing an author, or anything like that. Some people are busy, but some people are actually really kind and will take the time to give you all those answers that you need.
Excellent point. Thank you very much, Rumby. Okay, thank you for that question, Nikki. I hope, sorry, Ellie, I hope we've answered that to your satisfaction. Moving on to our next question straight away from Nikki. First of all, Nikki says, thanks very much for putting on the webinar. You're very welcome, Nikki. And says, my daughter is year 13 and they're busy visiting universities for acting for the screen. Any tips or advice for Nikki's daughter, please, especially those that are respected but not private, as they can be very expensive. Jessi, as an actress, I'm wondering whether this would be a good one to come to you for any thoughts on.
Absolutely, I'm happy to help. If it's advice about universities, there's loads of options of obviously there is drama schools, and a lot of them you still can get funding with UCAS, etc. So you can still get your bursaries, etc. from different universities. I would say for drama schools, be careful of foundation years because they aren't often not funded. You can't get any funding for them, and also don't always guarantee you a place into their full 3-year degree. So just be aware of that. They are really useful for some people, but just be aware that they're not always a guaranteed pathway into that drama school. If you want screen specifically, all of universities will have a breakdown of what they offer. The reason I picked my one was because so I went to Bath Spa. I know there's lots of other universities, but I went to Bath Spa and I did an acting degree, and they had a fantastic screen course. So it was as part of my second year course and my third year. I got to write my own sitcom, which was, as I wanted to pursue comedy, was ideal. And I got to work on an actual TV set with a live studio audience. I also got to do kind of behind the scenes stuff as well, which is really cool. So was a boom operator for my best friend scene, etc. So there is courses that really offer a lot for screen. It's not all about stage. There is a lot that I just like to do a bit of everything, really. And I think it's a good thing to have a mix of everything. Also, there is, I know in Lichfield, but also in lots of other places, courses you can do specifically for screen that are not part of university. So just at the top of my head, LCA Academy and Agency, which are based in Lichfield and Sutton Coldfield, they specialise in film acting, and they are for anyone of the age from 4 to 18, I believe. And they also offer courses throughout. So I know there's other companies and things as well that offer that as well, as opposed to just a straight university degree.
Thank you very much, Jessi. And again, I think it's worth reiterating that if you do go on to do a university degree, and Jessi's touched on it there, one of the things that you will find yourself doing is roles that you had no intention of doing to begin with. Boom operator, as you say, Jessi.
Fun.
Absolutely. Well, it builds up the arms, that's for sure. And of course, what that does for you, it dips you into areas that you weren't necessarily expecting to go, which is great on a number of levels. Firstly, you might actually find something that you weren't anticipating to enjoy, and it might push you down a different path to the one you expected. But B, it just gives you, as Jessi touched on there, just a brilliant overview and understanding of that particular sector, be it theatre, be it television, be it music production, whatever it is. It gives you a broader understanding of that particular sector, which is just invaluable, because you can then appreciate what other people's jobs are and how you interact with them. Thank you very much for that, Jessi. Okay, moving on to the next question from Emily. This is a difficult one. Where do you recommend looking for funding, especially when just starting out? I know, especially when starting out and jobs aren't coming to you yet and you have to go seeking them. I mean, to an extent, Emily, it sort of depends on what funding you're specifically looking for. If you're able to just put a little note, ask another question within the chat to give a little bit more background on it, we might be able to be a little bit more specific. In my case, for example, my lucky break came when I got some funding to make a short film. There was a government initiative, long since dead, sadly, that gave money out to young filmmakers to go out and make a short film, and that's what I did. And but obviously that's going to be very specific and different to funding that might be elsewhere. My personal take on it, if, for example, if anybody was thinking of trying to get into the film or television industry, there are specific funds out there that are offered by various people in the area that do offer funds that you can dip into. Lichfield Arts itself recently gave some funds over to a young local filmmaker to help finish off his film. So there are funds out there. Would anybody else like to jump in on this? As I say, at the moment, it is a very general thought with regards to funding. But does anybody have any thoughts with regards to that? Yes, Jessi, thank you.
Amazing. So funding for, obviously I mainly know about performing and acting, but there is different funding pots for depending on what you want to do in, for example, acting industry. I'm currently in the creative process of looking for funding for a children's theatre piece, and there is different bits of funding from different areas. For example, accessibility, there's some funding for that. Rural touring, there's can be pots of funding for that. I'd recommend working with someone or asking advice from specifically a producer that is aware of your creative field. I'm currently working with an amazing producer based in Birmingham that is just what she knows. So there is always help out there. Just have to look for it. And but I'd say recommend looking at producers, but also touching on what Nikki said earlier. Social media is amazing for things like this. Like, you can find links to funding pots, and I look a lot on In Good Company, which is a Derbyshire-based, I think it's Derbyshire Midlands-based sort of creative networking, and they put so much on their social media. So on their stories every single day, there is job opportunities, there is bursaries, there are workshops. So I'd recommend wholeheartedly following companies and people like that. Okay,
yeah, thank you very much, Jessi. Nikki, your thoughts?
Yeah, so I would come at it from a music angle. So
brilliant.
There's loads of different pots of money for musicians at various different levels. So whether you're like emerging, whether you're just starting out as a community artist, or if you're like on the brink of something and you need a push to the next level, organisations like PRS Foundation help musicians, even Arts Council sometimes. They will have various different pots of money depending on, again, where you are in your career. And also, as Jessi said, like looking on social media, there's so many accounts that focus on like collecting as much information as possible about funding at various different levels, and whether that's like local, national, international. It might be that you find a small pot of money that is from a really, really far away country, but they're looking for emerging artists from, you know, regional places in the UK. You don't know until you look for it. So
thank you, Nikki. Over to you, Mia. Any thoughts on this?
Yes, I echo what Nikki said about the Arts Council. There's lots of personal development grants and things. So if you're looking for like training grants, which will obviously help you kind of gain employment in the future, they can be really useful. But also your university might have like alumni grant. So if you're looking to do kind of specific projects, you can reach out to them about what they might be able to give you monetarily wise, because obviously it looks good for them if their alumni are doing well in the course that they took.
Thank you very much, Mia. Yeah, back to Nikki. Did you want to add a little bit more in there?
Yeah, I was just going to say, regardless of what art form you concentrate in, if there's anything else involved in the project that you want funding for, perhaps look for funding around that as well. So I was just thinking about PRS Foundation. They have a fund for early career promoters. So they're looking at giving money to people who want to put on events. And vice versa. If you've got a project grant, you want a project grant that's for a theatre piece, but it revolves around music, you may want to look for theatre stuff. So don't concentrate specifically on that genre of art if you're looking for a fund.
Thank you very much, Nikki. Claire, yes, from South Staffordshire College. I thought you might have a thought on this.
Well, this is more on an educational side. So if you're feeling like you're applying for jobs, but a lack of qualifications is a barrier, say for instance maths and English. So if an employer is requesting a certain level of literacy and numeracy, but you don't have a certificate to back that up, the college and many colleges, so if you're not Lichfield based, most colleges will provide training in certain levels of qualification, especially if you're an adult and don't have them. So for instance, if you don't have a GCSE in maths and English at a grade 4 or above, which is grade C and old money, you can actually train and have lessons for free to enable you to gain those qualifications. If you do find a qualification is a barrier, it is worth contacting your local college and seeing what funding there is available. And when you're in and enrolled in a college, if you are from a low income, we can also provide bursary to help with associated costs of attending a college as well. So it's always worth reaching out to your local college, wherever that may be.
Brilliant. Thank you, Claire. Emily has been in touch again to say Emily is a writer, but does lots of arty things. So anything producing, but also just getting work out into the world, which is exactly what this webinar is about. Any thoughts from anybody with regards to crowdfunding? Because, of course, there are lots of crowdfunding options these days, GoFundMe, etc. And things do get off the ground from people doing crowdfunding. In some cases, I think in all honesty, once a crowdfunding item goes out there, it often tends to be family and friends that sort of chip in to at least get it started, and then maybe it begins to get some momentum of its own. How important, I mean, crowdfunding is something that's really only come about in recent years. Does anybody have any thoughts on crowdfunding? Do we think it is a valuable route to go down? Anybody thoughts on that? Yes, yes, sorry, who was first there? Nikki, yes, thank you.
Hello. Yeah, hugely valuable. So I am a funding advisor for PRS Foundation as well. So I get to see applications sometimes. And a lot of the time, people will crowdfund before they go for those other grants. And it's like a positive reinforcement that you have backing, and that you have a solid like fan base behind you, and that you're reputable, you're a good artist, and that people are willing to support you already. So absolutely for it.
Thank you, Nikki. Rumby, you're nodding your head vigorously at that. Would you like to chip in there?
I think I can only really think of it in terms of like illustration, comics, and writing. With a lot of crowdfunding, I found that because you're crowdfunding to actual people who will be your audience, who will be your readers, oftentimes is a lot more valuable, even if you don't meet the funding goal, because you have the people who are backing you. Where sometimes when you're going to larger funders, you are needing to convince them how amazing your idea is, even if they might not be able to connect to the idea, the story, the piece of art that you're trying to make. So, and also with crowdfunding, at least I'm at this point in my career where I think that you need to start making the work, not necessarily without any money, but you need to be making the work regardless instead of waiting for the funding. Because when you're making the work regardless, those funders might find you because you're already talking about it, you're already doing it, you've already got the reputation, your CV is backed up with you doing that work. So when they are looking for the evidence, when they are looking on your website, when they're looking your social media, they can see, oh, they're doing it. They've got the initiative, they've got the discipline, they're already doing it. They're not relying on us to start, they're relying on us so that we can perceive their vision even larger. So that's what I'd say.
Thank you very much, Rumby. Very valuable advice there. Thank you, everybody, on that one. Emily, I hope we've answered your question adequately there. There are more questions coming in. Please keep them coming in. As I said at the top of the show, you can easily send your question in. Just go down to the bar at the bottom, hover over that, and you'll see the Q&A button. Just click on that, and you should find that you can send a message in to us, and we will either answer it within a text format, or we'll answer it live on air as we're doing at the moment. And everybody's question that has come in so far, I guarantee we will get these all answered tonight. Do not worry. At this moment in time, if we get hundreds of questions coming, we might struggle, but at the moment, we will definitely get all your questions come in. Antonia, I can see your question that has come in, and if you don't mind, I'm going to hold on to that one a little while, because that feels a good question possibly to finish on. So please, Antonia, do not go anywhere. I promise you we will answer your question. But next, I am going to go to Ellie. Ellie asked a little bit of, Ellie was asked us right at the top of the webinar with regards to the best place to find creative jobs. Ellie says, thank you so much for the information, everybody. Other than the obvious, such as experience, if you're in a hiring position, what is a key thing that you would look for on a CV? Now, that's, on the one hand, this is a tricky question within the creative industry. In certain other industries, I guess, and forgive me if I'm sort of generalizing massively on this, but I guess it might be slightly easier, because if you are going for a job as a quantum mechanic, for example, I would expect a physics degree on there somewhere. With the creative sector, it is different, isn't it? Claire, maybe I could come to you first on this one, because obviously you're sending a lot of young people out into the industry for the first time. Any thoughts on this? Do you give advice on what people should be putting on their CVs?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I can answer it from two perspectives. One's as training young people in how to write a CV or how to apply for jobs, and also someone who is a recruiting manager. As a recruiting manager, I think in this day and age, it's what I'm looking for in an application. And in education, we don't accept CVs, it's an application. Is it sincere? In the days of AI and large language models, we can spot when AI has been used, and to me that it's a very insincere approach to applying for a job. And especially when you're applying for a creative job, we want to be able to see that passion and love of your subject area coming through. And I think if you're going to resort to using AI to write it for you, I think that is definitely going to be a setback, because I think recruiters are getting used to seeing the AI types of language. So you either have to get better at using AI in terms of making it more true to your own beliefs, but also just, taking a risk and putting yourself out there. It may not be grammatically as correct as AI, but it would be more real and showcasing you as a person. So just being true to yourself in an application or a CV. And I think applying for a creative job, the applications that have stood out in my mind, in the many sort of people I've interviewed is those that are very active in the industry, whether it's through paid work, volunteering, working with organisations and promoting art, music, and it's also links to portfolios. So in preparing our students for applying for work or HE universities or beyond, it's about developing a portfolio of work. and that might be a digital portfolio, you know, a portfolio of artwork, or sketchbooks. It's about being broad in how you can present your work as well, and showcasing your work in multiple different formats.
Thank you, Claire. Nikki, as head of programs at Punch Records, I'm guessing you would have a take on this, because I'm assuming, are you in a position where you would be getting CVs over your desk?
Yes. We also run a lot of development programs where we would work with artists who are looking at maybe stepping into the next stage of their career. So they're looking for new jobs, or they're looking for sustainable careers. So they're putting portfolios together. So we'd help guide on that. But I was just going to say, I think something that's always overlooked in creative CVs or portfolios is the fact that when I look for an artist to work with, I want to know, like any other field of work, that the person that I'm working with is reliable, that they can read budgets, perhaps, that they know how to strategize. So all these things which are actually transferable in other industries that you will learn at college or school, they are really, really important. And although your art is the main feature, and a portfolio needs to be there, I need to know that who I'm going to work with is going to understand like how we work. And
so what you're saying, Nikki, is you want those core subjects and that core value to be there, as well as the creative side.
Yeah, and it's really important. I think if that's missed, I would usually, move on.
You'd move it on, because I guess because you're getting so many over your desk, it's easy to just sift them out by saying, well, I can't see from those that the core values are there, so I'm going to move on from those. Rumby, you had your hand up. Did you want to add in on this?
Also, depending on the career that you're going into, you might need to write an artist statement. And that will often be really, really important. I always feel that the CV is a thing that will like get you to tick the boxes of the job specifications, but the creative statement that you write ends up allowing them to know who you are and the things that you think are the most important and the things that you've done. And then that's the thing that often will get you the interview. And then in the interview, that is the place where you get the job. That's what I believe anyway.
Thank you, Rumby. Claire, go back to you just for a second there.
This is probably quite a boring answer, but very practical answer. If you are applying for jobs with large organisations, say the BBC for an example, or South Staffordshire College, what you will find is it's a points-based system. So if you are applying for a job and you're writing a cover letter or filling out an application, make sure you are marrying up your application to what the job specification is, because if you're faced with 40, 50 applications, you are looking at who meets the essential criteria, and you are literally point scoring through an application. So it's making sure when you're applying for jobs, if there is a job description, that you are addressing all of the requirements in that job description. And again, in an interview as well. So you are showcasing everything that employer is saying that they need, because often is with the larger organisations, to make it a fair process, it is driven on points for each question and how you answer that. And then it's literally whoever scores the most points goes to the next round of recruitment. So like I said, it's a boring answer, but a very practical one.
Thank you, Claire. Very, very important. Mia, coming to you next. Obviously, your background, just to remind everybody, is theatre and as a stage manager. What thoughts do you have on CVs?
Yeah, so just very specifically as a stage manager in theatre, we have, as a stage manager, there's a very specific layout to your CV. I'm not sure this is the same in other kind of creative sectors, but it's not the same as what you'd expect a normal CV to look like. And I didn't know that until I was shadowing someone and asked them to send me their CV.
I didn't know that at all. This is brand new information to me.
So kind of if you don't have that layout, it really shows that you're not going to like have had any experience in the theatre. So if anyone wants me to send them like a template CV of that kind of structure and stuff, but I think it would be in your creative sector, there might be a specific layout that they're looking for.
Wow, Mia, thank you. That was a really, really valuable piece of information. If that sparked anything in anybody, and anybody is interested in that, we will be sending out resources after the webinar. And as I understand it, you'll be able to reply to that email. So if you are specifically interested in what Mia's talking about there, then drop a line back, reply to the email, drop a line back, and we will make sure that that information gets out to you. Is there anywhere else, Mia, specifically at this moment in time, for example, that they could actually go and find the information you're talking about?
I'm not sure if it's kind of available publicly. I think there are lots of, if you kind of join Young Stage Management Facebook groups, there's usually people offering to send out their CV or offer CV coaching. So you could use that too.
Okay, thank you. That's really, really valuable. We'll come to sort of whether there are any sort of more specific examples of creative CVs in a second. But Matt, yeah, coming to you next as an illustrator, how do CVs work for you then?
Well, I mean, it's interesting because, you know, CVs and as a freelance illustrator, it's not something really that your sort of CV is your portfolio, and you're kind of like your presence and your social presence, and really having that cohesive sort of visual brand, I think, is really important, so that it shows, you know, anybody that's commissioning that they are, you're going to deliver something that is that they want. And also, really, as an illustrator, it's, and what's important, and especially for people starting out, if you've not got any professional work to show, it's making sure that the work that you put within that portfolio shows work in context, so that it shows that you've got, you know, you're able to deliver work in a certain format or way that will fit its intended kind of medium and output. So building that professional portfolio is really essential, because that is the thing that you're hired, you know, and commissioned upon, which, you know, the CV, if you're going for a position in-house, obviously it's a different, you know, the CV and the portfolio work together. But as a freelancer, which most illustrators are, the portfolio is really, really, you know, the most important thing.
Vital. Yeah, thank you, Matt. Jessi, I'd like to come to you as well, because obviously you're coming from an acting perspective. What would you expect to be putting on your CV from an actress point of view?
Acting CVs are a bit interesting. So I have Spotlight, which is where I get a lot of I apply for most of my jobs, and they have a Spotlight CV. You can Google these, or I'm happy to send mine into the resources, and so you can look at them and how they're set out. On an actor's CV on Spotlight, you have a selection of headshots. You have all of your specifications, so your hair color, your eye color, your height. There's no secrecy in an actor's CV, unfortunately. But they're all useful information for a casting director to see. I've been booked for jobs just on my CV, which is ridiculous in my opinion. It was shocked me completely. I was like, on a self-tape. But also on my CVs there is links for my showreel, which I assume is very similar to a portfolio, etc. So I have 3 showreels on my Spotlight CV, and a voice reel, and a list of skills that I have. So I'm a trained fighter, so things like that are all on there. So there was a reason why I was quite quiet, because I was like, my CV is very different to other people's, I feel, but because I can do a Liverpudlian accent on mine, and that is quite a relevant skill. But I think the important one for performing, and actually really, I think any creative career, is to be truthful, because you can be pulled out on it.
Yes.
There is, from a performance point of view, there is nothing worse than putting that you can ride a horse, being shortlisted to ride a horse and find out you cannot ride a horse. So that is, I mean, it's not happened to me personally, but I know people that it's happened to, and that would be absolutely awful. But also to not be afraid to showcase your skills. So if you are an incredible opera singer, and that is something that you are, and you're a performer, and that is something you have as a special skill, showcase it. There might be no one like you that looks like you, that walks like you, talks like you, and sounds like you. So I think to showcase your skills, but be as honest as possible.
Thank you, Jessi. And the one thing I would add in, and some of you might disagree with me on this one, but it's always worked okay for me, is you're trying to enter a creative industry, present a creative CV. In my opinion, a CV doesn't have to be just black on white text in Times New Roman 12 point, just on an A4 sheet. Think creatively, make your CV stand out. As I say, you're not entering brain surgery or rocket science. You're going for a creative industry. So think creatively, think outside the box, and make your CV stand out on the desk. I see no harm in that, because of the industry you're looking to go into. You can afford to push the envelope a little bit on that and show that, well, heck, you're a creative person. I see no problem in that at all, personally. Okay, then, going to come to a couple of more questions now. Next one up is, how do you find people who are already in the industry to learn from and ask them a question? Well, of course, you could be watching this webinar. That's about as good a place as any, and we're doing our very best this evening to answer these questions for you. But opening it out a little bit wider, how do you find people already in the industry to learn from and ask them questions? Rumby.
The internet is your friend. So if you already have artists, I would say for art and illustration or even anything else that you already like, you could DM them. I think writing an email is often better than DMing someone, as long as you know what questions you're asking. Like, I cold emailed like 10 people, and then 3 people replied, and they wrote the longest replies ever. They wrote essays about questions about how to get into their industry and everything. And if you're looking for peers instead of like information, there are a lot of networking events that aren't just like, this is a networking event, but like if you go to someone's gallery showing, an exhibition, a poetry night, an animation film screening, there are people there who are doing the thing that you want to be doing, and you can be like letting them know that you want to do that, talk to them, and also just letting them know where you are in your career. They're really open. Also, people like talking about themselves, especially creative people. So if you're like, oh, I'm just starting off in animation, they're like, oh yes, I started animation 20 years ago. They want to talk about it. So like, they are there to help you. And I think even people who know where you have been when you're starting, they want to make it easier for you because they know how hard it was for them. So yeah.
Thank you, Rumby. And it's a really good point. And I think it is worth reiterating here that creative people generally, because they enjoy their jobs, they do want to talk about them, and they enjoy talking about them, don't they, Rumby? That's what it is. We enjoy, as I think you can probably tell from us all sitting here smiling, we enjoy talking about this stuff. We enjoy being involved with it. So you're quite right, Rumby. I think anybody you ask with regards to creative, they're going to want to talk to you about it on the whole. Jessi, yeah, any thoughts from you on this?
Yeah, I think so going on what Rumby said, networking events that aren't really networking events. So there is like creative spaces, performances. I just performed at a place in Nottingham that was a networking event, but it was just like a variety show of different pieces, from comedy to music to poetry to visual art. And it was just a wonderful time to meet people that are creatives, and also things that aren't necessarily creative based. So for example, Katie, who is backstage, who is wonderful. The reason I know Katie is because we met at a sign language course, and it was a wonderful way to meet, and then we remain friends, and we have social media again. Great use of social media, and asking friends and peers is a great way to build connections. So friends of a friend is such useful. It's like you said already, it's not always what you know, it's who you know.
Thank you, Jessi. Wise words. Mia, over to you.
Yeah, kind of in the same way I reached out to people on LinkedIn when I was first starting out, which I know doesn't work for all of the creative sector, but I'd say for backstage theatre is still kind of industry standard. And I went really high with like who I was messaging. Like, I messaged the director of Birmingham Rep thinking there's no way. And then she invited me to come visit her at the Birmingham Rep. I got a whole backstage tour of the Birmingham Rep. She gave me some advice that definitely helped lead to my first like professional job. So I'd say don't underestimate who you can talk to and who will give you their time. Like, you never know what you might get out of it and what you might learn.
Excellent point, Mia. And before I come to you, Claire, I'd like to pick up on that and point out that, again, as we've already said, as I say, we love talking about creative stuff. We're enthusiastic, as you can probably tell. And if you project that enthusiasm to the people that you are talking to, Mia, as you've just covered there, people will pick up the baton with you and they'll let you run. If you go into a kind of situation, you're a little bit, well, you know, I think I want to do this, but I don't really know, I'm not that fussed, it's not going to work. If you bounce in and you are enthusiastic, and don't worry, if you're not naturally that kind of character within yourself, we're not expecting you to do anything and put yourself in an uncomfortable position. It's much more about just showing that you've got some enthusiasm, you've got passion for what you're wanting to go into. And if people that you're talking to can see that, they will reciprocate and it will come back to you in bucket spades loads. Claire, over to you.
Yeah, just to agree, Simon, and with Mia, that you'd be surprised actually if you reach out to people, what people will give back. I think,
Yeah.
I know I'm biased because I'm a teacher, but I think there's an inner teacher in all of us, especially creatively. We want to sort of pass back, you know, what we've had. And I'm sure all of us sitting here on the panel have had an amazing teacher, creatively speaking, that's influenced us. So if you put your best version of yourself forward and reach out, you know, and I'd be very surprised if people aren't willing to help the next generation. I think another great way as well is volunteering, and I've mentioned it before, and I'm a big advocate of volunteering, giving you time back, because again, that opens up a lot of different doors and you will meet people that you wouldn't even dream of meeting. For instance, I'm here today because of the work that I do with Lichfield Arts and meeting Simon through Lichfield Arts, and Catherine's in the background. So being part of Lichfield Arts in that way has introduced me to so many more people and who are working creatively that I had no idea existed in Lichfield, even though I had been here many years. So not only are you giving back to the community, which is great, but you're also getting something valuable for yourself and your own development as well.
I agree, Claire, and I think you will find as you start to get out there, your network will grow quite quickly, especially if you were to focus in, you know, within the West Midlands, Staffordshire area as a starting point, which is where we're focusing our attention for this particular webinar. You will find that it's it's a very vibrant community, but also B, it is a very helpful community. We all want to do things. We're all within our own capacity. Everybody on the panel tonight is in some capacity involved in other things, community projects, if you want to call it that, where we will get involved in stuff because we want to see creative stuff happen. And there is an enthusiasm and a passion there from us all to just make things happen. So I think as you reach out to people, you will find that as I say, it will come back to you. Mia, did you want to add something to that?
Yeah, just saying in terms of work experience / volunteering, the organisation that you might be interested in or the sector you might be interested in, they may not have like a web page that details their volunteering or work experience. They might not be advertising it constantly on their social media, but they might still have a programme, or they might have someone who's just willing to take someone on for a week or two. So definitely kind of reach out yourself, even if there isn't like an official application form, things like that.
Thank you, Mia. And again, volunteering raises an interesting question. I'm going to ask for another show of hands, actually. Who here, specifically within the creative industry, I'm not talking about anything other than the creative industry, who here did some free volunteering work, in effect, to kickstart their creative career? Yeah, I mean, pretty much everybody. My personal one was I started as a runner on Emmerdale. So I was a tea boy. I was getting coffees and teas for people running up and down mountains in the middle of the night, keeping cows out of shot. I did it completely free of charge for a couple of months. In fact, I was funding the production because I was paying so much in petrol to drive out to the middle of nowhere. But it is something that I just think in most cases, you probably will have to do, and it's something that you should embrace and go for. It's nothing to be ashamed of. If you can afford to do it, and it is difficult, but if you can afford to do it, absolutely, if your position allows you, do some volunteering work, if at all possible. Yeah, Claire, back to you.
Yeah, so this obviously comment ties with a question, and not that I'm taking over hosting, Simon, but
no, you go for it, Claire.
About how you can put yourself out there at networking events, and it's the same.
Yes.
So if you're volunteering or you've got a new job, and that can be really difficult to, you know, have the confidence to put yourself out there. And I think the more you volunteer, the more you'll develop that confidence. So when you're at a networking event, you are more sort of comfortable with, you know, communicating with people from different walks of life, different backgrounds, different points in their career. And I think working with the charity is a great way to do that, because you'll find in charities there's all sorts of people at varying points of the career, people who are starting out, people who are retired and wanting to give back. And it's a great way to build those soft skills, communication and teamwork. So when you are putting yourself out there professionally, you have that confidence to do so in a professional manner.
Yeah, I would agree again, Claire. And the thing I think that is worth adding on to that is really, as I think we've sort of touched on earlier, if you were to try to get involved with the charity, as Claire suggests, or getting some volunteering work or whatever it might be in that capacity, again, don't necessarily worry too much if it's not in your specific area. If you sort of think, oh no, that's not really what I want to do, it doesn't matter. Just get your fingers in, get them dirty, just start doing something, just start to get involved, because if nothing else, as we've sort of alluded to, you know, the networks you will create will feed back to you, and you'll start to get to know people, and you'll be within some sort of arena where your creativity can flourish. And as I say, you might meet people, people talk, things can lead to things. The more you can get stuck into and involved with, the more likelihood you are to meet just the one person or find just the one fund that can help you and push you onto the next level. And yeah, thank you for introducing that question, Claire. So really, I think we to a large extent have answered it, but I will just reiterate it to make sure we're happy, which is what we do with regards to networking events, how you present yourself at a networking event. Maybe if you haven't got the confidence to go out and do that, has anybody got any thoughts on the best way to sort of present yourself with regards to networking? It's a difficult question. Yeah, thank you, Jessi.
Yeah, and I've just seen another question that's about networking, and it was specifically about, it looks like you're just asking for jobs, which is absolutely okay in some ways, as long as you're doing it in a polite, professional way. So if you are in a position where you are talking to someone and it's about, I don't know, for example, for my own personal thing, if anyone has any stand-up gigs for me, or if I'm looking for stand-up gigs, I might be having a conversation with a comedian, and I'll be like, well, if I hear anything that suits your scene and you see mine, we'll do kind of like a swap. So it's okay to ask for help, but also to help provide help as well. So in some ways it is completely okay to, I wouldn't just go, can you give me a job please, but there is definitely a way to go around it and things like that. But just be yourself, I think, is the best way. It's as cliche as it sounds. If you are honest and true to who you are, and you have a passion of what you want to do, and you have the skills that someone is looking for, there's no really bad way to present yourself. Just remember that you're a human being and so are they, and we can't always help each other, but most of the time people are kind and want, like it's already been said, want to help others. So
I would thank you, Jessi. I would agree wholeheartedly on that. I think it's never, and I will come to you in a second, Rumby, but just say in most cases, it's never going to feel like you're just asking for a job. As Jessi said, you don't go and say, give me a job. But if you're showing enthusiasm and you're pitching ideas, for example, or you're suggesting something, it can be done in a very careful and subtle way. And again, as we've already said, in most cases, the creative industry is such that people will respond to that. And in all honesty, in my experience, certainly the people that don't respond well to that kind of quite direct approach are probably the people you don't want to be working with anyway, and you're better leaving in the dust. So I would always say, no, be proactive, get out there, be, as Jessi says, be yourself, be confident, be friendly, be charming, be polite, and you won't go far wrong. Rumby, over to you.
I'd say if you're feeling not confident at getting yourself out there for networking events, you can practice with your friends. Like literally, if you try to talk about what you do, what you want to be doing, who you are, as if you don't know your friend, they can give you feedback on how you're sounding, on the parts that they think that you're missing out on, because there are things that you might not say because you think they might be obvious to someone, but you can get that feedback and that practice so that when you're actually in the room, that won't be the first time that you've talked about yourself. That'll be the second time or third time or fourth time or whatever. And you can already be like, hi, my name is Rumbi. I do this, 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 and this. Like, you can get that practice. And then the more events that you go to, the better you get at talking to yourself. And if you feel uncomfortable talking about yourself, ask about them and then also follow from their lead. You're not the only one in that conversation. There are 2 of you, there are 3 of you. So you can learn about them through that process. And then they might ask you questions that you can answer back to.
Thank you, Rumbi. And I think, again, just picking up on that, one of the most important aspects with regards to networking is, as Rumbi says, there are 2 in the conversation. It's not all about you. Make sure if you are asking them questions, a brilliant way in is to ask them a question rather than you introducing yourself to a large extent. And again, we like talking about ourselves. We like talking about our craft. And so you ask me a question, and I'm sure I will wax lyrical about it, and then you can come in with your particular, the point that you're trying to get across, because by then you'll be halfway there because you've won them over. If you're showing an interest in what they're doing, and if you show some knowledge of their background, of what have they done, what brings them there, if you can just drop some little hints in there that give an idea that you're not trying to be smug, but you're just showing, I know what you do, I've paid attention to you, I know who you are, I know what work you've done. Trust me, that will pay back dividends, because artistic people love knowing that other people know what they've done. Jessi, over to you.
Just a little add-on. I think context is really important when it comes to networking. If you are at something that is like known as a networking event or a collection of creatives, much like this, that is something that networking and conversations about work is something it is expected. So don't feel weird about talking about work when it's in like a talk about work setting. I mean, I wouldn't maybe attack a director in Tesco and like demand some like information, but like if they're there in a context like this, it's completely fine, and you're in that space as well, so you can share that space with them. You've got the worth there. You're worth that time and that space.
I would agree, Jessi. And in all honesty, I'd add into that, to be honest, if somebody came and accosted me in Waitrose and said, I know what you're doing and I'd love to be, I can assure you I would absolutely, grasp that and I'd go with it. I think again, you're right, Jessi, but it's about sort of gauging the situation, but having confidence. Matt, I'd like to sort of give the final word to you on this in many ways, because Matt, obviously, as an illustrator, I'm guessing a lot of your time is spent working solo. Please forgive me if I'm sort of, clichéing you here, but possibly in a little studio. So you might not. I don't know whether you maybe get to have that. You have to do the kind of networking that other areas of the creative industry have to do. And how do you feel with that?
Well, I suppose I still go to lots of networking events. I'm part of Children's Illustrators North, a group of an illustration sort of group, and they have lots of social events. So there's networking that happens there where they bring in different links with publishers and like editors, I suppose. Yeah, lots of the work I do is my work in isolation, I suppose, the creative side of that process, but silo, it's a collaborative process, especially with book illustration and within the children's publishing. So I work directly with editors, art editors and editorial teams, so building up a strong working relationship is really vital. But like lots of industries, lots of people know each other in industry, especially within certain industries. So for publishing, for example, once you've got your foot in the door in an industry, lots of people move from company to company, and those contacts that you picked up, sort of stay in that industry, and people talk to each other. So that even when you work in isolation, there is still that those connections and those links. But getting involved with any organisation, like local art anything really, just meeting new, as people have said previously, meeting new people opens up different opportunities. And I always say, don't disregard any opportunities, because you never know what comes around later on, and it opens up doors. And even if that conversation doesn't lead anywhere at that point in time, people can remember you. You might give them a card, you might give them a link to your portfolio. They may see that, they may refer back to that, have a look, and and a job may come up, and they may remember you from a certain thing you said in the conversation. And so being polite, being open, being true to yourself, and opportunity do come around. Yeah.
Thank you, Matt. Okay, we'll try and answer a couple more questions before time catches up with us. And I really do want to come to this one, because this is a really important question for people to understand. What are the pros and cons of freelance versus employment? And I'll answer firstly very, very quickly, just to say that I've always been a freelancer. I've never been employed, as it were, in my life. I've always been self-employed as a freelancer. And the simple answer to it is that generally, as a freelancer, you will probably get paid more per day, or per hour, per session, whatever it might be, than you might as a staff. But the difference is, of course, that you won't necessarily be working 52 weeks of the year. And so obviously any week of the year that you're not working, you're not going to be getting paid. So that is one very, very simple, practical pro and con. Anybody else like to chip on this, the pros and cons? But firstly, who is freelance? Who is technically self-employed? Yeah, most of us, certainly. So yeah, Jessi, some thoughts on this?
Yeah, so I'm a freelancer. I think a pro, as much like you said, it's money-wise, it's more per hour, etc. And also you can, I don't like to say pick and choose, but I can pick and choose the jobs I do, and which is great, and to be in the position that do that. But also sometimes you can't always be in the position to do that because you've got bills to pay, etc. But one of my massive cons is, because I'm severely dyslexic and ADHD, is taxes. I have to say taxes is the bane of my existence. So but there is so much support you can get from that. I was so terrified of becoming freelance because of having to work on that, and actually it's something that my university course and sixth form and college never helped me with. It was never something that we looked at. But there is much advice you can get from that. But yeah, doing your own taxes was terrifying. But I've done it now, so.
Yeah, very quickly, I would add in, yes, you're quite right. Taxes is the bane of everybody's life, but as a freelancer, you will have no choice or to pay an accountant to do it for you. But you'll still have to get involved in it to some extent, even if it's just record keeping. And yeah, it can be intimidating, but all I would say is once you've done it, it actually, Jessi, is it fair to say it's not quite as scary as you might have thought to begin with? It's a bit of a pain, but it is copable with, isn't it?
Absolutely. I was absolutely terrified. I didn't understand it. I didn't absolutely get it. And then I'd actually do most of mine on like Google Sheets, which is such a great way of you can just make it so easy. And I didn't realize how easy it is. I mean, you can also get accountancy, but just also, again, another useful thing is just there's so many resources online or with people that are also creative that will help you and just be like, this is X, Y, and Z. And I'm sure Claire would know this more, but for people that suffer with things like learning difficulties, there is definitely resources out there as well on becoming a freelancer and the kind of things that it might include.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Jessi. Right. Okay, Mia, any thoughts on this?
I mean, yeah. So in theatre especially, there's lots of roles where you don't have a choice. It's not really kind of deciding whether to go freelance or whether to go employed. If you want to, for example, be a stage manager, if you want to be a director, a designer, you will be going freelance unless you get one of very few kind of venue specific roles. So as a freelancer, as someone who kind of takes job by job, it's difficult at times because you can be working away from home a lot. Unfortunately, if you kind of get a job somewhere and you get jobs after that, you'll end up in the kind of same place a lot of the time. And if that's not where you're based, then you kind of just have to suck it up. So that's something you should consider if you're going to think about going freelance. But it's also great sometimes because you can have a month off without having to request a month off if you kind of decide to take some respite time if you've had a busy contract. So yeah.
Thank you very much, Mia. Yeah, absolutely. I think you're absolutely spot on there. You know, it is one of those things that within the creative industry, forgive me again if I'm generalizing, but I do think probably that the majority of jobs out there are going to be freelance rather than staff paid jobs. And so it is just something that you get used to. You get used to sort of the roller coaster, and it eventually settles down, and you just get used to the idea. Matt, over to you. Any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, I think the pros of it are that you really are in control of your own time. You're your own boss. And also from an illustration perspective, you know, it's so varied and it keeps it really exciting. And that's what the thing that drives, you know, me forward is that project to project is very different, and that challenge that keeps you challenged. And that's what, as a creative, you know, I want to be, is challenged as well. Yeah, I think it doesn't suit everybody as well with your time and be able to work. You know, sometimes it's working very long hours, especially working for yourself, and also you're like a one team that you will be a promotant. You're the creative director, so you're wearing lots of different hats. It keeps it exciting, it keeps it interesting.
Thank you, Matt. Claire, the final word on this from you.
Yeah, as well, someone who's person who is employed and has been for a long time but did work freelance as a musician. Also, you can do both at the same time.
Yeah.
I employ a lot of lecturers who are employed by the college but also still work in the industry and are active in the industry. So you can have the balance and, you know, and have the side hustle as well to have that maintained income and structure, which then gives you a bit of headspace and freedom to be able to explore more creative projects. So sometimes it isn't just this or that. You can also do both as well. And if you work with a really good employer, they will actually allow you time to explore that creativity. We certainly do at the college. We expect people to go out into industry, and we give people time off if they need to, if the skills they're developing in industry is actually going to be helpful for us as a college. So you can have both as well. It's just what I wanted to add.
Thank you, Claire. Very important. And I think as a final word, it's also worth bearing in mind that because if you are going to be working as a freelancer, it's very wise, if you can, to have a sort of second string to your bow, so that when you are between jobs, if there's something that you can pick up some casual work, even if it is just bar work. You'll often find people within the creative industry working within doing front of house at theatres, for example. That is something that you can fall back on as a bit of a backup plan for if work is thin on the ground, which inevitably it will be. Claire, yes, back to you.
Just to add on to that as well, if you're in the creative industry, local colleges can hire people who don't have qualified teacher status, where in the school it's very rare. But if you want to give a bit of time, variable hours, a few hours a week, it might be worth contacting your local college or university about, actually, have you got a skill that they could utilise, even if it's just a couple of hours a week, and that's a great source of income and stability as well. So it's always worth reaching out.
Thank you, Claire. Okay, we'll try and rattle through a couple more questions before time catches up with us at 8 o'clock. We will be finishing the session at 8 or thereabouts. One question that's just come in, I'm not sure if anybody's here is a sort of a skill to answer this one, but we'll throw it in there anyway, because it is an important aspect of the creative industry, and that's poetry. We haven't mentioned poetry, and gosh, would it be awful to say that poetry is maybe one of the forgotten parts of the creative industry these days? But it's there, absolutely, and it's as vital and as important as any of the creative disciplines. Rumby, straight over to you for that one.
I'd say, especially if you're in the West Midlands, you're quite lucky when it comes to poetry. When I think of Birmingham, Birmingham is one of the cities for poetry. There are many
you're right.
events you can go to. There are many poetry slams you can go to. There are many even at National Poetry Day as well recently. There are many things out there that, one, you can network with and meet other poets and talk to them about how they get opportunities. And also there are a lot of poetry or even spoken word or jobs that you can do where you use poetry as your medium. So right now there's been a lot of push in a lot of nature spaces like National Trust sites or heritage sites for people to respond to their area through poetry or visual arts and things like that. There is not a lack of work for poetry at all. It's just how you end up positioning yourself when it comes to your poetry. Are you a spoken word poet? Are you writing poetry? Are you making a pamphlet or publishing your work? Are you putting your work out there so other people know you as a poet? So when you're in these spaces, you can be headlining if you've been doing slam poetry somewhere else. You know, if you're in these spaces, you can ask for these people how they got to where they are. So yeah, there's a lot of things you could do.
Yeah, thank you very much. Nikki, over to you.
Similar. So I was going to say, a lot of the time we work with other community groups who aren't maybe arts based. So for example, we work with BRIG, which is Birmingham Race Impact Group, and they put on seminars about race and like politics and things that are going on around race. And we often hire poets or speakers who they're not singers, but they're there to entertain, and they're there to be emotive, and they're there to stir up, you know, a feeling in people. And I think you should think outside of just arts and think maybe corporate, politics, like anywhere that needs entertainment, basically. Spoken word artists shouldn't rule themselves out of that.
I guess also it's worth mentioning that with regards to poetry, it is something that absolutely you can self-publish yourself. In many ways, it's a very, very easy medium to get out there. Anybody else have any thoughts on poetry at all? I mean, there's the other thing that's maybe worth mentioning as well is the poet laureate roles and the young poet laureate. Rumby, do you know anything at all about that?
Well, one of my friends is the young poet laureate right now, so
brilliant.
I know for that you get a lot of opportunities to connect with people that are in different communities. So they got to go to Wales to write poetry about this ecological health seminar that was happening there. They are connecting with schools and thinking about poetry there. There's a lot of creative facilitation work that you can do with poetry. That isn't just a solitary thing. You could be working within schools, within theatre, within community groups that are wanting to respond to work through poetry. And especially if you're doing it in the Midlands, there's a lot of desire for it. So I'd say you're pretty much situated very well if you're wanting to do poetry.
Thank you, Rumby. Final word to you on this one, Jessi.
So just what Rumby said and what Nikki said, it kind of sparked a memory in my mind. Some theatres, I know Derby Theatre did a programme a couple of years ago called Reimagine, where they did several different creative outputs, and one of them was poetry and creative writing, which was a great way for it. Was all aimed at people under 25, and they got mentoring. It was a completely free programme, and they got mentoring from professionals, and then they created their own little network of creatives. So they did one for dance, music, acting, and then creative writing and poetry. So I'd say just keep an eye out for things that might not be where you think they are, like Nikki said. So they might not just say poetry in big letters, but there's definitely ways into it through different areas.
Thank you very much. And I think just to finish up on the sort of the young poet laureate role, I think it's an application that takes place every 2 years. I'm right, aren't I, Rumby? And obviously to bear in mind, it's obviously very much a status role rather than it's going to be paid. But again, that just feeds into what we're sort of talking about. It's all about, in this industry, it's about experience as much as it is about paid work. Okay. Right, this is a really good question to almost finish on, but not quite. Somebody asks, what one small action can I take today that will help put me on the path to success? Gosh, that's a really difficult one. Is there one small action that we can think of that we would recommend? I mean, the first thing I would personally say is find your passion. What is it that you are passionate about? Go away and think about it. And I would hope that maybe the discussions that we've had on this webinar would have made you, maybe got you thinking about this. And you might already think, oh no, I absolutely want to be a film director. I want to be a musician, whatever it might be. You might have that. If not, then my one thing that I would say is go away, find what your passion is, and be specific. No, don't think about I want to work in television. What do you want to do in television? What is your love? What is your dream? What's your dream job? Because your passion will then come through when you're dealing with people. Matt, any thoughts on this one?
Yeah, just resilience and belief in yourself, I think, is really important. And being able to take knockbacks and to pick yourself up when you get those knockbacks and just carry on. And I think that's a really, you will get knockbacks in the creative profession, and it's being able to learn from those instances and grow stronger from them and just carry on, really.
Thank you, Matt. Nikki, one thing that we could do today.
Ask lots of questions.
Brilliant.
We've said it a lot during this conversation, but when you're networking, when you're trying to meet people, get work, if you don't have like an elevator pitch and you're not confident in speaking about yourself, just ask, be inquisitive about other people. I hate networking with a passion, and I've always been really, really bad at it, but I'm really nosy. So I tend to find out things and fall into opportunities just through asking questions. It's really important.
Thank you very much, Nikki. Rumby.
Find one event that you can go to this weekend, any event, whatever it is, and a creative event preferably, but any event that allows you to be in a space around other creatives being creative, and do that every single month until you start getting comfortable and building your community to talk to people.
Fantastic suggestion, Rumby, because you're immediately getting into the arena, and also you're going to do something you're going to thoroughly enjoy as well. Brilliant answer. Jessi.
I think linking to what you said, just write a list or make a mood board or whatever visual, or if you better with words, you do that, of what you want. Maybe it's a mind map, maybe it's just something, a picture, whatever. But if you know what you want from the creative industry or from your own path, writing it down or putting it in front of you, and then you can work out how to get there. But just knowing what you want is a nice way to start.
Thank you very much, Jessi. Any more final ones on that, on what they could do today to start themselves off on the path? Anything from Mia, maybe? Any thoughts?
I'd say what I already mentioned about reaching out to people in the local area who you know work in what you want to work in, and either setting up a Zoom or an in-person chat with them, offer to buy them a coffee.
Thank you very much. Okay, we are going to finish on one very final question from Antonia, which I did promise that we would answer, Antonia, right at the beginning. And this, in many ways, this to me is a very positive way to end what we've been talking about on this session. Was there ever a point where you were discouraged from pursuing a creative career, and what helped you stay on that path? For me personally, Antonia, no, I was never discouraged. I've never been discouraged. I've always believed that the creative path is perfect for me. I feel it with a passion. I love it passionately. And of course, you have dark days when you think, oh, am I going to do it? Am I going to make it? But if you believe in yourself and you find the passion in yourself to go for a career in the creative arts industry, no, I genuinely believe there's no regrets, there's no discouragement, and you'll find your way through it, and you'll go all the way. Any thoughts on that from anybody else? Yeah, Rumby.
I am not lucky enough to have loved it all the way through. I quit art for about a year or so, and in that time I started facilitating and doing workshops and stuff, and the one thing that got me into it again was being around students that loved art just for the sake of making art. So people that loved making comics but didn't necessarily have the skill, because the skill was getting in the way of my passion. And then as soon as I found something that I was really bad at doing, just so I could have the passion. So people would tell you to have a side hustle, tell you to monetize everything. Don't Find things that you're bad at that are literally just for you, and that will be the thread for you when you're feeling like everything's awful, you can't do anything anymore. Do pottery, be awful at pottery. Like, pottery humbles you straight away. Like, and I think that was the thing that made me actually just like, cool, I'm bad at this, great, I can do art again. And I think use that.
Brilliant, thank you, Rumby. Yeah, Mia, over to you.
I'd say if you're kind of feeling down, find community in art. There'll be people in your sector, even if you don't work with them or never work with them. You've got friends who do what you do. If you kind of made friends on jobs or on work experience, reach out to them and chat to them if you're feeling discouraged. But there will be people to pick you back up who know how you're feeling. And as long as you keep that kind of that delight of when you're in your element, doing what you love, knowing that you're in the right place, you'll feel that again in the future.
100% agree with you, Mia. Jessi.
So I've always wanted to do what I do. It's been my dream since I was 6 years old, and before that, apparently the only thing I wanted to do before that was to be a dolphin, according to my mum. So I picked the job that I knew that I could achieve, and but there's been moments throughout my career where I've gone, oh, I don't know if I can do this anymore, or oh, maybe I'm not the right person for castings anymore, or whatever. But I think there's two things that have always stuck with me, and one is that it is possible. Like, in front of you is people in creative industry, and they are living and thriving and surviving. So that it is possible to be a creative and live. But also, someone said to me once that the worst thing that people think the worst thing you can say is no. And in acting you get rejection all the time, but it's not. It's a 2-letter word that is used every single day. You think about how many times you hear the word no, and it does not end your career, it does not shatter your life. It is a 2-letter word, and you can move on and grow from it. And I think for me as a performer and actor, that is the most important bit of advice I've ever been given.
Spot on. Thank you, Jessi. Claire, your final word on this?
Very much like you, Simon. I was very fortunate that I was never discouraged from pursuing a creative career. But what I did is, obviously, I did my music degree and wanted to be a saxophonist, and I did that for a little while. But then, when the doubts creep in, I still continued, but I broadened actually what I could then do with the skills that I had as a musician. And, went into education and did a bit of both. And actually, from broadening what I could do and was capable of, I found an absolute passion that I never thought I would want to do, which has then opened up so many doors to different pathways I would have imagined that I would ever do in a million years. So it's for me, it was the doubt in myself actually. But I continued on and just broadened rather than following one path. I thought, what else? Where else could I go with my training that I have?
Thank you very much, Claire. A final word from you, Nikki?
I always tell people, go and see art. We're all creators, we're all artists, and we forget that it's not just about making art and monetizing things. Actually, you were inspired by something at some point. So just go and see more art, go and do art.
Thank you, Nikki. And Matt, final word from you. Do you have any thoughts on when you have your dark days?
I think if it's something that you can, I feel like I'm compelled to be an illustrator, and it's something that I've never not wanted to do. And even in the days when it's been tough, I think if you are creative, it's something you've just got to do. It's within you. And again, if you really believe in it and you're really passionate about it, and if you really work hard, it's achievable. And but you've got to be able to ride the storm and take knockbacks, and just having belief, I think, is really important. And I think, and if you believe in yourself, that'll come through in the work that you produce as well.
Thank you, Matt. And I would just add as a very final word to all of this, really, that, yeah, I think the creative industry, I'm going to go out on a limb here and argue that I think the creative industry is the most rewarding of all industries to work in. So if you are ever doubting yourself, trust me, the hard work is worth it in the end, because the difference with the creative industry to various other industries that you might look at is with the creative industry, you are always going to come out with an end product at the end of it, be it a poem, be it a piece of work, be it a song, be it a theatre piece, be it a television program, whatever it is, you will create something. It is the creative industry. You'll create something, you'll have an end result that you're proud of, that you can actually show to people or share with people, that they will enjoy, and the rewards that come back to you, the feelings of pride and satisfaction are worth those dark days that you might experience. So yeah, just go out and have a blast is the way I would look at it. It is a very, very rewarding. It's a challenging but a very, very rewarding industry to work in. Find your passion, and I'm in no doubt that it will bring you wonderful rewards, and we all wish you the very, very best. So thank you very much to everybody that's contributed questions. Just a reminder that this was that the Creative Careers webinar has been brought to you as a collaboration between Lichfield Arts and Lichfield Festival, with funding from the Arts Council England. Thank you to everybody for that. Thank you as well to our wonderful panel, Claire, to Nikki, to Matt, to Mia, to Jessi, and to Rumby. Thank you all for your contributions. I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I have. It's been a wonderful, wonderful session. Thank you again to all of you out there for your questions, and we hope that we've maybe inspired you a little bit. Maybe we've helped you as well. Maybe we've made you think about a little bit more about what you might want to go out into the creative industry to do. We are here to help you. You will receive an email following up from this particular webinar, and as I said earlier, that will be easy enough to just simply reply to that email, and you, if you have any specific questions that we've not been able to answer this evening on the session, or if you have follow-up questions that you think of in the days ahead, as we've said many times during the session, it's the kind of industry that is very nurturing. We want to help each other. It's a collaborative industry, and so everybody out there is always going to want to help you. So good luck to everybody in all their chosen careers. We all wish you the very, very best. Thank you very much again to everybody for watching. Thank you again very much to the panel for being here and giving up your time. Thank you all. Bye-bye.